Yes, sir.
Oh, baby, we back. Road Gang Radio. Lindsay, Jimmy, everybody, hang out. Good times.
We back.
We back, baby.
We back. We never left. Welcome back to Road Gang Radio. That's Jimmy Mack. I'm Lindsay Lawler. Phone Master Dre on the ones and the twos, keeping us on the air for the most part. And love you. And Madison hanging out. Madison with the T hanging out. I like seeing you guys over there. Like you're like partners in crime working behind the scenes.
It's getting worse by the minute, but go on, please.
100%. Be nice to me.
Fair enough. He can mute me, so I love you, Dre.
Go get your coffee.
Okay. Well, we're continuing on. Yeah, I could just keep saying, hey, somebody grab me a coffee. I'm here alone in my house, but I just yell it anyway to see if maybe it will miraculously happen. I need a coffee sponsor. Call me. Okay, so y'all get ready because we have another badass joining us today. We go from songwriting to firefighting.
Badass!
But they're both writers. We're talking to female badass writers today. Joining us today, she's an actual real life badass. Kelly Ramsey. She's a former wildland. That's very southern to say, wildland firefighter, and the only woman on the elite Rowdy River Hotshots crew. Hashtag badass. It's one of the most respected wildfire crews in the country. Her brand new memoir, Wildfire Days, it was released into the wild, but not the fires, just yesterday, and it's already setting hearts and minds on fire, pun intended, sorry, not sorry. Y'all, in this book, Kelly doesn't just take us into the smoke and the danger of frontline firefighting. She also opens up about the emotional firestorms, more puns, she's walked through in her personal life. It's a story. The story it's more than about fighting fires, both metaphorically and in real life.
A lot more.
A lot more. It's about grief, grace, and grit, y'all. Three of our favorite words around here. It's what it means to rise from the ashes. She's a real phoenix rising. She's a Kentucky girl who studied poetry, turned into a hotshot firefighter in Northern California. She now lives out west with her partner and their dog, Rookie. And her writing, it's gorgeous. Her stories are raw, guys. I'm honored to have her today with us. Please make welcome to the show my new friend and yours, Kelly Ramsey. Good morning.
Now that's a badass.
Good morning, Lindsay and Jimmy. Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor to be here.
Kelly, before I get to my question, I just wanted to tell you, my wife and I live in Santa Clarita, California. I'm in the city of New Orleans right now, and we got caught between that pincer maneuver and almost had the fire come to us. We were so lucky. We brought our pets over to get them checked on in the aftermath of everything, and the number of dogs I saw coming out of that veterinarian office with bandages on their feet, bandages on their leg, with the owners delighted and the pets delighted. And I just want to say thank you to every fireman, every firewoman, everybody who fights fires across the state of California and beyond. Thank you so much for all that you do to make sure that people actually have a shot at continuing not only with life, but in the lifestyle that they have come accustomed to. So thank you for that, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I know the pets, it's just so heartbreaking, but it's so beautiful when you see the reunions between the people and their pets. I love that.
Oh, I could cry just thinking about them right now. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, the number of people walking out of those things with those bandages on their feet, but the dog was so delighted to be back together with its owner, and it just makes such a big difference. There is a deep passion that runs through this book, and one that I wasn't prepared for in the beginning. I had a pretty good sense of what I'd be dealing with. I come from a family of firemen and firefighters. My great uncle was the fire chief of the city of New Orleans. So I had
your family is so big that I feel every time I'm like, there's that in your family? Yep, that too.
If my grandparents were alive, they'd have 67 great-grandchildren. I'll put it that way. Okay. But I wanted to talk about the beginning of the book in particular because I don't want to give away the whole enchilada, but the emotional wallop, I mean, we're like maybe 50, 60 pages in, and I have felt like I had been through a lifetime because you take us through your lifetime before we even get to the point where we're fighting fires. After kind of a brief interlude in the beginning, we then shift over to what gets you to where you get to, and then you're on a phone call with your dad that ripped my heart out. I want to ask you, what was more difficult to write about, the aftermath of the fires or your personal family history?
Oh, yeah, you nailed it. Definitely my personal family history. It was like, I don't know, eviscerating myself and then being like, hey, here's my guts. Does everyone want to read about this? Just very, very painful. And some of those scenes were just really hard to sit down and write and took me several tries. and, just involved, I'd sort of write and then cry and keep writing. But, in that sense, it was very cathartic too.
I want to start with this because it's pretty amazing. You talk about, and spoiler alert, we do read the books around here, Kelly. So there's that. We care. But your story, what's so cool about this kind of, I guess, the overall theme and feel of the book is you don't have to be a literal firefighter to identify with what you're talking about. There's obviously some huge themes in this book, and I think the fact your writing and your presence really poses the question, which requires so much daily presence, and that is, which fires do you fight and which do you let burn you clean, as you talk about, both literal or emotional. So I would say to start off with maybe one story, one lesson. What are one of the ones that stand out right now that taught you the most about yourself? You talk about several in this book, but what's an instance that comes to mind? You're like, that's when I knew who I was.
I would say probably one of the early training hikes, and this is a scene in the book. I don't know if you'll remember it, but
I do.
You seem to remember the book very well, which I'm really honored by. So, I had been not a very good hiker at first, and despite training for 6 months in the off season, trying to become a good hiker. And, I think by layman's standards, maybe I was a strong and fast person, but not compared to these guys I was working with. So I was really in a battle for my life that first month, trying to improve and trying to keep up. And I just wanted to catch the main pack of guys. I didn't need to be anywhere near the front, just not at the very back. So on one hike, I'm behind this guy who, by the way, everybody has a pseudonym in the book, and even Rowdy River is a pseudonym. That's not the crew's real name. So I'm behind this guy who's one of my buddies on the crew, and he's friendly and he's laid back, and he's hiking, and he has a slight knee injury, so he's going at a pretty moderate pace, and I'm right behind him. And one of the squad bosses, one of the sort of leaders on the crew, is behind me, several people behind me, and he sees me, and he goes, "Hey, Kelly, I see you're drafting off that guy. Pass him." And I was like, no, I can't. I can't possibly. I can't go fast from this. But, he's pressuring me. Now I'm going to feel ashamed if I don't. So I pass that guy. And then he starts yelling at me, "Go get the next guy." And I was like, dang it. Like, no. But then I was like, well, I have to. So I speed up. And when I say speed up, I mean, we're going up a hill that is nearly vertical. So you're kind of like, you're almost inching along. You're huffing, you're puffing, you're dripping sweat. Your legs are just screaming in pain. But I speed up. I pass the next guy. And then he's like, okay. And, he starts just naming people, pick them off. And I start passing them. And it was one of the first moments where I was like, I didn't think this was physically possible for me. I didn't think this was mentally possible for me. I had almost resigned myself to being near the back for the whole season. And suddenly I saw, not only can I get better at this, but I can pass people. I can pass men going up this hill.
Bye.
Yeah. And, part of the culture of the crew is it's really hyper competitive. And that's like part of the fun for them is like passing each other and then talking trash later. So
typical boys.
Like, I can participate. Exactly. Yeah. And I had sort of been like, this is silly. This is so silly. And then of course, once you do it, you're like, ha, sucker.
Yeah. Once you taste blood, you're like, oh, now I got to win.
Yeah. You start embracing it, and I was like, it wasn't just about the competition, but that sense that like, oh, I can really participate in this. I can, fight my way up this hill and I'm going to pass some people. And that was the first moment that I was like, oh, this might actually work. I might actually be able to do this job.
I'll tell you this, by the way, the mark of any good piece of literature, any good piece of memoir writing, any good piece of drama is when you know how something's going to end, because after all, you wrote the book, so I know you're going to be okay. That particular scene, I kept thinking to myself, this is how people actually get themselves really terribly hurt. Because when you you want something so bad. And the idea, think about the people who have given themselves the bends in SEAL training because they didn't want to wash out. They didn't want to ring the bell. And this is how
Absolutely.
people always think that we tell stories of grit and determination and getting over the hill, hoorah, make the movie about it. On the flip side, how many people have, broken their ankle, have shattered their knee? And as I'm reading it, the tension that was building in me as he kept on saying, okay, okay, okay. And I'm like, oh my God, because you think to yourself, I don't want to drop out, which means the only way you drop out is if you get really badly hurt or worse, right?
Right. Yeah, and it happens to plenty of firefighters. I mean, I'm very lucky that didn't happen with how hard I pushed my body. But yeah, there's this problem called rhabdo. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like rhabdomyolysis. That's kind of an extreme heat and exhaustion injury, but it can damage your heart permanently.
Right.
And I knew a firefighter when I worked on the Klamath before I went to the Hotshot crew, who got rhabdo, from a couple bad hikes, and essentially it pretty much ended his career. So it's pretty dangerous. Yeah.
Going back to the competition piece, I was so struck by that because you were, the only woman on the crew and one of the oldest. With all due respect, you're still young, but that's unfortunately, listen, I'm in entertainment. I'm a singer, so like being a female and thinking about my age is like always on our mind. But then when you learn to like release that and not identify with it, I think it changes everything. I don't know if you would agree with that or not. Well, first of all, do you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah, okay. But I was so
She's with you. She's with you on this, Lindsay.
I knew the answer was I knew the answer was
1,000%.
But I was so struck when reading it to be like, how were you able to, I want to say, balance the idea of like going up against these men and being like, okay, this isn't, how do you balance? Like, I want to win. I got to sort of quote unquote prove myself, but it's also not about proving myself to them, or it's more about, you had to do it, I assume, for yourself. Like, that's great if you can beat the boys club. Yes. Badass. But how do you balance that when you're physically kind of having to measure up to them, but then also knowing in that moment, that's not really what it's about. It's you being the best that you can be. Does that make sense? How do you like not look at the physical leveling up to them, but just being there for yourself?
Yeah. It had to be about, I need to prove to myself that I can do this. This isn't necessarily, like, of course, a part of me wanted to prove to them that I could do this and earn their respect. And that was a huge part of everything. But it really was, at a certain point, it was for me, and it was kind of like for women. I was like, I need to show myself, and I need to be able to say to other women, I need to be able to say to my future daughter, women can do this. I did this. I proved myself here. But it's also like, it's that really tricky thing about being in an extreme minority as a woman in a male-dominated field, where you do this dance between how much you assimilate and try to fit in and be one of the guys, and how much you kind of hold on to yourself and try to maintain your identity, or whatever your identity was before you came there, because of course your identity is fluid and it's changing every day, especially in a job like that. So that was a really tricky balance for me, sort of being like, okay, I'm becoming one of the guys in this way, but then, in this other regard, I'm going to draw a line, and I'm not going to participate in this thing, or I'm not going to allow this thing to be said to me that feels inappropriate and gendered. So it was always this really tricky back and forth between trying to fit in and then trying to hold tight to myself.
I want to point out something to our listeners, too, by the way, because when you get this book, and you should get this book, you're going to notice that it is not just a well-told story, it is a gorgeously written one. And I don't want people to think that literally this firefighter just simply transformed into a savant over their time walking through the wilderness. This is an incredibly gifted writer we're talking to here. Poetry at UVA. You got your MFA over the Cathedral of Learning, by the way. And
love that you know that.
Yeah, what is really,
we know everything. We're also in your bushes right now.
Yeah, but hand me the binoculars, please. The binoculars, please.
Like looking out there.
Yeah, but one of the things that is so important to remember about this is the fact that I think that there is a crisis in a lot of writing these days, because Eugene O'Neill is no longer joining the Merchant Marines. Tennessee Williams is not working inside of a trucking warehouse. Ernest Hemingway is not driving an ambulance over in the fields of of France for World War One. I wanted to kind of talk to you from a writer's perspective about how important it is for young writers and writers as they begin to kind of figure out ways to kind of engage more in the world, to actually go out there, much like the poet laureate of Massachusetts who works for the Transit Authority, to really get out there and live among human beings and tell human stories about people in the world as opposed to one more workshop.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you're preaching to the choir here, because I did my MFA so long ago, and my life really took a turn away from academia, and then took a further turn, obviously. I feel that so much. When I read books that seem like they're written by writers for other writers about being a writer, or just about some relationship that happens in a room where two characters are just talking to each other. Those can be really interesting and beautiful, but also not. And I think it's so important to live your life and to live a rich life. And for me, I'm so sorry, the landscapers just showed up. I tried to talk to my landlord about this, but apparently they're here anyway. Hopefully.
How rude. Don't they know you're doing a radio show right now?
Come on, man. What's happening?
The garden must go on. It's okay.
Do you
we
wanna-
can't hear it. You're
walk
fine.
away from the window.
I
Okay,
understand.
Okay, good.
You're
Okay.
fine.
So for me, it's so interesting because I think that my writing and everything about my life really improved when I started doing jobs that were physically grueling. And so anytime a writer asks me, sort of like, how do I become a better writer? Well, the obvious answer, like, read a lot, write a lot. But the other not so obvious answer to me is like, hike a lot, work with your body a lot. Because to me, that's been one of the most enriching things. And your mind is doing a lot of work when you're walking. There's been some recent studies about this where the left-right movement, the like proprioceptive movement of your body going over, a landscape, the left and the right, it does something to your brain that kind of like resets how your brain is working. Mm-hmm. And so I found that a lot when I'm on a hike, either, for work or even just for pleasure, that some of my best thinking happens then. And I'll be sort of processing something intellectually or emotionally that I didn't even know I needed to work through. And suddenly, a few miles in, I've arrived at clarity. And so, I really think, writers should go and do real and bold and brave jobs in the world and travel and all of that. But writers should also work with their bodies because, for me, my best ideas don't come from sitting. They come from movement.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's putting you in that meditative state. And suddenly, a few miles in, I've arrived at clarity. There's the first line of your writing piece, of course. It's,
I love it. Thank you.
We're talking with Kelly Ramsey, a real-life badass, an author, a firefighter, and a true inspiration. It's funny, Kelly, so our producer, Phone Master Dre, just typed in the chat. He said that he said, I almost was a firefighter. One gig that I always had sworn I had he had so much respect for, but he didn't become it. He couldn't handle it. He couldn't man up to Kelly. Just kidding. I'm kidding, but I'm also not, because what's funny about it is like him. It just made me think about Dre saying that. Made me think about all the kids growing up. They dress up as firefighters for Halloween, or they see the fire engine go by. My 6-year-old daughter sees. We saw it this morning on the way to camp. She's like, fire truck, and then she goes, not an emergency, because the siren wasn't on. It was just driving. So when we see it, she points out whether it's a fire, a fire truck or an ambulance or a cop car, any of them. Yeah, she points out, she'll say emergency or not emergency. And then if it is an emergency, we talk. I know it really is. And then we talk about, we just like have a little moment of silence if it is an emergency, and hope that, wish for the best for whatever that situation is.
Aww. Yeah.
But that being said, what do you think it is? Because I mean, it is hard. We all know how hard it is, and that's why we grow up and realize, oh, I fantasized about it, but I don't know if I could take it, or if I'm ready to do it. Same thing, like going into the service. These things that are
right.
that we respect so much growing up, and we can dress up and put the uniform on as an honor or as a Halloween costume. But then when it comes down to it, not everybody is cut out for it. So what would you say? I mean, we all have it in us, but it's mentally, are you ready to lean into that or not? What would you say between both yourself and some of your confidants in the industry that you worked with are maybe some qualities, and I don't mean physically, I mean, that you see as sort of like, okay, we all have A, B, and C, that, or even just one thing, you're like, we all have this in common, and that's why we're here.
Right. I think, persistence would definitely be a big one, but I want to say this, I'm trying to think of the right word, because masochism isn't it. Like, but it's
not a bad one,
along
though.
Those lines. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like somebody just said, actually, in a review that I was just reading, they were sort of calling me this huge masochist in the book, and I was like, wow. I mean, maybe that's true, but I was like, that's not really how I see it, because the thing is like the suffering doesn't feel like suffering to me. It feels like joy. And I'm trying to figure out what the best word is for that. I think that so many hotshots I know have that in common, where it's like the hill is terrible, the hike is terrible, your whole body hurts.
I got it.
And a part of you is just smiling. Is that a word?
It's not a word, but I have a great phrase. We did a Tough Mudder a couple of years ago, and one of our regular callers called in. He says it has the requisite amount of suck. And I just love that phraseology, the idea of the requisite amount of suck. It sucks just enough so that you feel like when it's over, you will feel it was worthwhile. Bingo, bango, boom. Bingo.
In the outdoor industry, they call it type 2 fun, which is type 1 fun is it's fun in the moment. You're really enjoying it. You know it's fun while it's happening. And type 2 fun is it sucks, and then afterwards you're like, wait, that was really fun, though. So, yeah, I think everybody I know who's become a hotshot is really into type 2 fun. That's their thing, suffering and then realizing later that was the best time of your life.
I'm going to actually ask a question that is both a joke and at the same time real. So what's tougher, being a hotshot firefighter or finishing a book?
Oh, no. Honestly, it's a draw. I think, being a hotshot is a lot harder physically, and it's tough mentally too. But finishing a book is, I just had no idea. You think you're going to finish it in a year, and then 4 years later, you're like, this is still happening. Mm-hmm. It's not done.
Well, it's got to be a discipline. I mean, they both you have to have so much discipline for both in different ways, right? I mean, do you think discipline is a thing that can be taught, whether it be physical or mental, or do certain people have it and certain don't? I'm curious because I have zero. I'm asking because I need some help because I have no discipline in my life. Kelly, help me.
I think it can be taught. I think some people, have more of it maybe naturally. I have an 8-month-old daughter, and she's just naturally extremely persistent. I'll watch her practicing a new skill, she's trying to pull up to stand, and she'll practice it just what seems like hundreds of times in a row, just again and again and again, pull up to stand, fall down. And I think that's most babies, right? Most babies are pretty persistent naturally. And then
I don't know. My kid was pretty lazy. My kid was pretty lazy as a baby. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Okay.
But I think it can be taught because, I used to be a very undisciplined person and writer. When I was in my 20s, as I'm sure you read in the book, I was just kind of a hot mess. And I wanted to write. Yeah, right? I mean, aren't we all? But I wanted to write, but I was very erratic. I'd go out and party and then get up and go to hot yoga and then write for 20 minutes and then not write for another week. Very
hashtag balance.
Irregular.
Partying and yoga is hashtag balance, girl.
Yeah, there you go. Sweat it out.
Right? Yeah, I was always into the hard workouts. That was always a thing. But it was only in my early 30s that I started to be like, hold on, time is passing. I said I wanted to be a writer. I need to get more serious about this. And that's when I started, a daily writing practice, even though I was running a nonprofit. So I would get up at 5 or 5:30 a.m. and write for an hour before I started my workday. And once I started that practice in my early 30s, I kept it up for then over a decade. And it took another decade of being that dedicated to writing before I wrote a book that anyone wanted to buy and publish. So, I think you can build that muscle, because I definitely didn't have it as a younger person. And also, I didn't have the literal physical muscle of working out like you need to do to be a hotshot. All my friends from college and high school, they were like, "You became a firefighter?" Like, it was not that athletic. I was not that strong. I was not, I was a nerd. So I think everyone was just like, "You?"
Hauling.
I was like, yeah.
Well, wait. You did haul a
You're the coolest nerd I know.
You did haul a cello up and down hallways, though, if I remember correctly, right? I mean,
I did do that.
Ahem. That was one of my favorite moments in the book, was
Casual.
clearing her throat to kind of be like, somebody hauled a cello down the hallway. Ahem. By the way,
Somebody was a huge dork.
yeah, that's all right, Baron. The Baroness von Dorkenstein has joined us. We are so thrilled to have you, by the way. Kelly Ramsey is here. The name of the book is Wildfire Days. A woman, a hotshot crew, and the burning American West. And guys, if you don't know what a hotshot crew is, it's the one first responder where you always have to stay in shape. A lot of my fellow members of law enforcement, when I was over in that particular world, did not make a commitment to staying in shape. They made a commitment to donuts. Kelly?
I was going to say, did you guys have donuts in the firehouse or no?
No.
No, submarine
No.
sandwiches. Actually, you know what the great joke is, right, Kelly? You'll love this. If you want to know where the best donuts are, look for the police cars. If you want to know where the best hero sandwiches are, look for the firemen. That's the absolute truth right there. You like that?
Everybody will want this book. You can go to kellylynnramsey.com to find it. It is out. It was released, birthed into the world just yesterday. Thank you, Jesus.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. It's a massive accomplishment. Thank you for sharing your story. Is there or will there be an audio version?
There is an audio version,
Okay,
and
good.
I'm the narrator. So if
Amazing.
you like listening to me talk, you can listen to 11 hours of it.
Perfect. That's what our
so much.
Thanks. That's what our listeners need rolling down the road. You will be inspired by this. And, this book will remind you that you're not alone in the smoke. Keep walking through it. There's clarity on the other side, per Kelly Ramsey. Kelly, thank you so much for joining us. KellyLynnRamsey.com. Please come back again and talk more badassery. Thank you.
I would love to. Thank you both so much. This was really fun.
Thank you.